closed captioning brought to you by the Notaries Public of BC.
Welcome back. Joining us now is Realtor Bob Cooke. Hi, Bob.
Hi, Michelle. How are you?
Well, very well, and you too, I can tell.
We're trying.
Our person of the week, Martin O'Connor,
Yes.
had a lot of decisions to make around deciding to put his house on the market and make the move to a condo. What sorts of things would you be leading him through to be able to make this big transition in his life?
Martin's situation is not unique in the fact that him and his wife had decided at the time that they were ready to make a change of lifestyle and dwelling. And when they first called me to talk about that, I asked him some very direct questions, both of them, as to where do they want to go, why do they want to sell, what time frame did they have in mind, and then of course we discussed budget.
It's kind of brave of a realtor who's been enlisted by someone to look for a new house to say, or dwelling, why do you want to sell? Because you might rock them back on their heels and they might say, well, that's a good question, maybe we don't. Why do that?
Well, the way we work is that we try to make sure that we're in the customer service business. And I want to make sure the person is not going to regret the decision that they're making. Moving is not fun. It's very stressful. It's very costly. And I think it's really prudent for a professional realtor to advise the client of the options that are available to them, the costs involved, before they get into the middle of the process, so they can make informed decisions as they go through the various steps.
What sort of questions do they have to have in mind outside of this is how big a space we want? When you're moving into a condo situation, suddenly you're sharing that area with a whole bunch of other people, and that's a bit daunting.
It's a psychological change as well as a geographic change. They have to take into account size. You mentioned space, because in Martin's case, he has some very old, very big pieces of furniture. So how big the dwelling was going to be. The other thing is, where do they want to be geographically? Do they want to stay in the same neighborhood? Do they want to cut ties and start all over again? Time frame we talked about. Bedroom space or age of the building is very important. Some people want new, some people don't want new. If you're downsizing, you have to think about condo or townhome, stairs, no stairs, mobility. Is it a long-term hold or a short-term hold? All these things relate to the philosophy and the strategies behind why you want to move and when you want to move. So that's part of thinking and planning ahead of time before they start the selling and then rebuying process.
What other suggestions or guidance do you need to provide so that there aren't surprises down the road? I would imagine this might be related more to the people component of it once you move from an individual home to a shared space.
Yes, the concept of shared space is really important, because as soon as you contemplate giving up a single-family dwelling and moving into a strata title property, you now become part of the collective, if you will. You are a member of a strata club where you have private space, semi-private space, and there are rules and regulations that have to be followed. It is a requirement of real estate law in the province that anybody buying a strata or contemplating the purchase of a strata titled property, that they have access to complete information, history, and records of the complex as a whole. Anybody purchasing a home or contemplating the purchase of a strata titled home should at least have 2 years of the previous minutes, of copies of the rules and regulations and bylaws, financial statements, what are the long-term plans, and the history of management of the complex. Are they putting money away for the rainy day fund or contingency fund? There's really two philosophies of management of strata property. One is, let's keep the monthly strata fees lower, and anytime we have a major expense, we will charge everybody who's a member of the strata proportionately to pay for that improvement. The other strategy or philosophy of management would be that we're saving money for the rainy day fund for those ongoing maintenance, repetitive expenses that are coming on a timely basis. So our strata fees may be $100 more a month than the other building we saw, but they've got $500,000 in the contingency fund, whereas this building only had $100,000. There's a big difference in that.
How do you shop for a realtor that's going to help you downsize properly?
That's a really good question, because you want to make sure that there's a certain ability of faith and trust between the parties. Yeah. And in every case, I think it's really important that you, as the client, the buyer or the seller, depending on which hat that they're wearing, have a specific set of questions that they can ask the realtors that they're interviewing. And most people do interview more than one realtor if they don't know a realtor. So it's not uncommon for me to be interviewed by a prospective client for representing them in a transaction.
Okay, so I'll be sneaky. What are the questions that catch you and you say, oh, that was a good one? I mean, what should we be asking?
A public or a prospective buyer or seller would ask, are you an expert? If we're hiring you for your expertise, prove to me you're an expert in this type of dwelling, which would be strata, and also the geographic area that they're considering.
Great.
So that would be a start. Another discussion would be fees. What do you charge for our services? And they're completely flexible. I think experience in selling real estate in general is very important too, because the rules that we operate on today on buying and selling are different than what they were 5 years ago and 10 years ago, and they're going to be different 5 years from now. We have HST considerations now.
There's so much information to process here. It's
Yes.
been a totally useful few minutes. Thank you very much, Bob Cooke.
You're very welcome.
North of 49, a guide to the rest of your life.